Things there are for the Philadelphia 76ers a little bit rough. Final game, though, of a 3-game West Coast trip. Let's see if they can steal a win against the Los Angeles Lakers as they return home from a long road trip themselves. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers pregame show presented by Coors Light. Visit CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball to get Coors Light delivered or find a store near you. Along with Derek Bodner, Kyle Newbeck, I'm Devon Gibbons, Brianna with us. All of you, we appreciate you hanging out with us on a Friday night for a one-win basketball team trying to steal one on the road before heading back to Philadelphia for a Sunday affair against the Charlotte Hornets. But first things first, they need to pick up a win. And Tyrese Maxey, who has been there from the very beginning for the Sixers while they were awaiting the return of Paul George and Joel Embiid, unfortunately, in the game against the Clippers on Wednesday, he pulled up injured with a hamstring injury. They pulled him out of the game and saying that, you know, it was just something that they wanted to make sure everything was okay, no big deal. And then the next day, the ball dropped off. He's going to be out for a few weeks. And with that, Derek Bodner, Rich Hoffman had an emergency podcast on Thursday. Kyle, the first chance to hear from you about this in video form, of course. Your thoughts, man. Again, another one bites the dust for the Sixers. They can't have three guys out there, can't have nice things.
My thoughts are I'm really starting to wonder if the Sixers should embrace this the hire a press secretary thing, because Nick Nurse's reliability on health-related issues it's not complete zero, but I would say it's as close to zero as it can be without being zero. So, you know, knowing that hamstring issues are tricky and, you know, they're obviously you can't know anything with certainty after a game, to make the declaration and then we end up where it's a minimum of a week. It's sounding like it's going to be multiple weeks. I'm just sick of hearing something from him and then having to be like, all right, so what's actually going to happen? What's actually the timeline and, you know, everything else. So that's number one. Number two, it's what I wrote at allphly.com for our diehards. It's that the thing that I have been concerned about is coming to fruition, right? Where you now are in a spot where Joel Embiid has to come back and be the conquering hero. There is no margin for error. There is no, hey, let's let Joel ramp up slowly a little bit. There is no, Tyrese is the number one option. We're giving him the full platform to play off of Joel Embiid. Everything has lined up where his first game back they might be 1-8. We'll see what happens tonight and Sunday. Then they have an immediate back-to-back. Then they have an immediate road trip. And it just feels right now, it could change quickly. You know, Joel takes the floor and they look good. All of us are going to be like, we're back, baby. But right now, it just feels like one of those cursed seasons where nothing goes right. You never get everybody on the floor for extended periods of time, and you are just scratching and clawing and searching for anything you can get. So I would say the vibes have somehow gotten worse, and they were not high to begin with.
Yeah, you might end up going, depending on how long Tyrese is out, and reevaluated in 1 week does not mean he will be back in 1 week, as we know, because we are all veterans of the injury wars. But they might end up going a full month into the regular season without ever having played a single game with all three of their big three. Now, obviously, Joel Embiid, if you're going to only play with two of those three, Joel Embiid is the most important of those three. He changes the equation more than any of the other two. Even with that disclaimer out of the way, it is incredibly, incredibly frustrating. It's incredibly damaging to their season. It is incredibly difficult to get a read. There's a lot of people down on the role players and the moves Daryl Morey has made, and understandably so. A lot of them, especially the key ones, and Caleb, Kelly, and Andre, look bad, but their world is going to completely change when Joel comes back. We just don't have any real evidence of what they're going to look like because you've never seen them in their, optimal role. So, and it's not going to be that way for a little while now. So it is just wildly frustrating. And please, for the love of God, just play a good game of basketball tonight. I'm not even saying from a win and loss standpoint, although a win would be great.
Well,
I
they did
just
that
want
on Monday. They just couldn't
4
come away with the win.
where they compete and move on offense. That's all I want to see. Just give me something that is not infuriating at the end of the night. That's what I'm aiming for.
Yeah, man. So I mean, look, when the news dropped on Thursday, and you just like you kind of, all right, you put your hands up and say, okay, I'm not surprised by anything at this point, except for them stealing a win. That would be nice if they get that done, but I'm not surprised at this point by anything. And this has, and it's not this far yet, but the vibes. I know you guys remember, and maybe some of our listeners and our viewers will also remember this when Kyrie Irving and James Harden and Kevin Durant came together in Brooklyn. They just could not get on the floor together. Now, it's not that drastic yet, but it just feels that way early on, where you cannot get a good idea of who those guys are, what they look like together. We've all been waiting for it for the entire offseason, especially with the guys from 4 through 15, and how everything would just fall into place of what their role is for this basketball team. But not being able to see what these guys look like is very frustrating through the first 7 games of the season. This is something that we did our lineups, our projections, we did our rotations, our projections before the season start of what this could all look like. How many lineups has Nick Nurse had to put together? And we talked about what he has done and how he has not performed very well as a head coach with those lineups. But my goodness, how many lineups have they had already where we're trying to see what it looks like? We got 1.5 games of Tyrese Maxey and Paul George. We don't know how many games of Paul George and Joel Embiid will get before Tyrese Maxey does return. And this is definitely a tough one, because even after tonight, as we look at the Charlotte Hornets on Sunday, not to jump ahead, but they at least compete. So there is going to be another competitive game for them. And then you mentioned, Kyle, the back-to-back they're going to have against the Knicks and the Cavs on Tuesday and Wednesday. Things are already bleak, and they can get even further, tough to watch with this basketball team, just because of the fact that Maxey is now out. It's just really frustrating for right now for all of us, and just to watch it, hope to see what it looks like, and just cannot get a chance to see what it does. And I'll ask you guys this: was he the one that you could? I'm not going to say he's the least, because we know, as you said, Embiid, when he comes back, it's a little bit different. But do they have anybody else that can do what Tyrese Maxey does now on the floor?
Dribble? No,
exactly. So,
that's kind of the whole issue with this roster, right, Devon? Where
yep.
I know we harp on the size thing, or at least I do, in the backcourt a ton. If you were going to go small and load up on 6'1" guards, the trade-off should be somebody in that group should be a real ball handler, someone who can beat people off the dribble, right? Like, I'm not saying you can just like walk out on the street, point to somebody, and it's like, hey, that guy can be a 6-man type ball handler. But generally, the type of guys who are plentiful are those exact guards, right? Like, they're just statistically, there are a lot more 6', 6'1", 6'2" guys who are without gainful employment in the NBA than there are 7-footers and guys on the other end of the spectrum. So presumably you would be able to certainly not replace Tyrese Maxey, right? But you'd be able to put someone on the floor who might be younger than mid-30s, who can dribble a basketball and get you into your offense. That guy is not on this roster, right? And I think, Derek and Rich talked about this a little bit during the emergency pod that they recorded on Tyrese's injury. I do think this might be a situation where I know they want to keep it open for salary reasons, for future trade reasons, potentially, although I think that's just an excuse for salary reasons.
Bullshit.
That 15th roster spot is going to have to be used at some point. It might not be in the next couple of weeks, but I think you've seen enough flaws and enough issues with this roster that if there's somebody out there that you can sign off the street right now who can help this team, there is way more value in trying to win some games and getting a better player on the roster than there is holding open a roster spot because you want to pretend like it's about keeping it open for another guy rather than saving, money against the tax.
that there are few things that drive me more nuts when they send out the text that, oh, we're keeping the final roster spot open for flexibility, and reporters just regurgitate it. No, you're saving a couple $1 million on tax payments, especially this year when you have no real way of getting that second apron. And look, you want to save, I'm sure Josh Harris, billionaires like to save millions of dollars. We all get it. But fans like to win basketball games. And right now you have an open roster spot that could be used and help you win those games. It's frustrating, really. And there will come a year where like they will be right up against the second apron. Maybe you don't want to lose that flexibility. There will be legitimate years where you want to preserve flexibility. This isn't it. This is just preserving. Anyway, I said my spiel.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Well, we're starting to see some names now that you bring that up, Kyle and Derek. Markelle Fultz and some other ones, and we get the friend of the show, Darkness, Sean Wayans is the finals Wayans family roster spot.
Well,
yes, he is.
Deion Waiters says he's ready to come back and help somebody on the floor. Just to be clear, I am not actually advocating for the Sixers to sign, all due respect, Deion Waiters right now. But it's just more the broader point, right? Like,
yes,
Lonnie Walker is where? Like Lithuania right now? Like what? How is that possible? How? You are holding an open roster spot, and to the point that this guy has to go to Lithuania to play basketball. It's like, what?
It's funny.
Come on.
Deion Waiters has now been mentioned on 2 straight PHLY Sixers podcasts.
Unbelievable. That down horrendous is not doing enough lifting. I don't think that phrase is not quite enough.
To be clear, Rich and I didn't bring him up on the last one because we wanted him to be signed. We brought him up because Rich referenced the Heat team that started off really poorly and turned it on at the end of the season, and Deion Waiters was on that team.
Yep. Yes, he was. By the way, that was I think he was talking to Scoop B on that one. So give a little nod there for the conversation. All right, let's move to tonight's game where Tyrese Maxey, no Joel Embiid, neither of them playing, but Paul George is in fact in the lineup. And with that, Derek, he's got the keys, man. I mean, if he's had the keys in certain possessions where you felt like he was doing a little bit too much dribbling and all, not giving Tyrese Maxey the basketball, especially against the Phoenix Suns, where he had the hot hand, but he now has the keys against the Lakers tonight. Lakers coming off a road trip. They're back for the first time. So, hey, whenever we talk about the first game back, it's always a struggle for the home team, which is the Sixers from time to time. Could be the same for the Lakers, but with that, Paul George has the keys. What do you expect with a Paul George-led offense?
Well, I think the number one key is, can he stay on the floor? There's a reported 24 to 30 minute per game area that they're aiming to get him at today. You'd like to see that increased a little bit. Like we mentioned in the last show, they went on their run a lot when Paul George came out early in that third quarter, I guess to try to preserve him for the fourth quarter. It didn't really matter because by the time he came back into the game 7 minutes later, you were pretty close to garbage time at that point. And outside of that, like, can he, this is a Lakers starting lineup where whether it's, they started Connect last game, Reeves, Russell, there's a lot of those matchups where he's just going to be bigger than, taller than, and shoot over them. Can he get going from the perimeter, and can he get switched on the matchups that he can have a lot of success against? And when he's on, you assume LeBron's going to guard him as a straight up cover. Yeah. If you don't get that switch, can you make LeBron work? And can you make him exert energy on that end? Again, this is a matchup where I think he can have some success, but you don't need some success from Paul George. You need an incredible game from Paul George just to have a chance.
Well, you brought up a couple of names there. D'Angelo Russell was thrown in briefly. I don't know if you guys saw, D'Angelo Russell got bumped from the starting lineup, and local product Cam Reddish is starting for the Lakers tonight. Whoa. I would assume that is the guy who's probably going to guard Paul George. I think that's the kind of the point of moving him there. Lakers lineup is AD, LeBron, Rui, Reddish, and Austin Reeves. So obviously there was some much publicized JJ Redick explosion on the bench the other night, watching D'Angelo Russell force up a bad shot in the corner. And he was pretty open in public about his defensive compete level, we'll say. So some interesting things going on in Laker world. But yeah, I mean, even still, Cam Reddish is a decent defender, decent man defender. Paul George is going to have to be better than whoever is guarding him. I think LeBron maybe at the end of the game might step up and guard him. But I think until then, he's at the stage of his career where they try to use him as sparingly as possible in those top matchups. I think that's a big piece of Reddish moving into the lineup. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, to build off of what we were saying earlier, Paul George is almost undoubtedly the best ball handler they have left standing right now, which he is a good ball handler for a wing. I don't know that he's, the greatest ball handler in the world for, broader basketball spectrum. And asking him to create right now and be like the guy on offense is a big ask, right? Even though he was hitting lots of shots the other night, or I shouldn't say lots. He hit most of his shots in limited minutes. But ball handling and playmaking have already been issues for him. First 2 games, I think he had 3 or 4 turnovers last game, 3 or 4 turnovers his first game back against Phoenix. I frankly would expect those numbers to go up tonight because he's going to have to play a higher volume, higher priority role as the lead ball handler. But we'll have to wait and see. Certainly, it also doesn't help that there are fewer, the way the Lakers are set up, there are fewer switches to hunt, and still got Anthony Davis hanging around back there on the back end, even if you are able to get past the first layer of defense. So uphill battle for Paul and everybody else tonight.
So after the Suns game, and we were previewing the game against the Clippers on Wednesday, I mentioned how he had a nice return, even though he shot poorly, 4 for 14, did some nice things overall in the game. And I did not want to see him overdoing it offensively, where he was forcing himself a little bit into getting those shots. Now with no Tyrese Maxey, it just feels like it has that feel that to you.
Yeah, it's either Paul George forces it or Kelly Oubre forces it. Yeah, and I know which one I'm picking.
Yeah, and we know which way that's going to go. And so it's just a matter of, as Kyle said, how many turnovers can he keep that down a little bit? Can he keep it down a decent amount? Because we know the turnovers are just going to destroy you because they don't have enough where we see the turnovers where it prevents them from being so good in the half-court defense that they stop things. And we're talking about trends. These are live ball turnovers that guys are leaking out for some easy buckets. They have to be on point with how they protect the basketball a lot. And if he's at the head of the entire offense, at the top of the key in general, at the head of it, and then taking those shots going downhill, maybe leaving his feet, passing the ball, or trying to finish at the rim, and it's defended well by Anthony Davis, they have to be prepared that, of course, they all get back, and they get back in defensive position to slow those things down. So he can keep those to a minimum and keep themselves in the game. And as Derek, you pointed out earlier, just keep themselves competitive. They should give themselves a chance. The Lakers are coming off of a 1-4 road trip, and they did not look good in it. And Kyle, you just mentioned it. D'Angelo Russell benched now because of what he did in that last game where they lost against the Memphis Grizzlies. So they're trying to pick up. They got off to a nice start with those first 2 games under JJ Redick. They go on the road and they don't look so good. So now they're trying to come back to the comforts of their own home against another team that's reeling. And they're going to look to pick up where they left off before they went on that 1-4 road trip. So Paul George has to do that. Keep those down. Be that distributor. Be the guy to make the right passes. Be the right guy to make the right plays. And something that we talked about the last time too. These are veteran players. He's a veteran player. Don't get too ahead of yourself where you're turning the ball over and costing your team possessions and then giving up points on the other end. So that's going to be a big thing for while he has the keys. Make sure he drives this car responsibly and not give up too much with the keys to the car. All right, let's get to as we talk about the keys, let's get to the keys to the game. Kyle, yours to start things off, your keys to the game for this one against this Lakers team.
Well, as Derek said, how about just playing aesthetically pleasing and entertaining style of basketball, right? Like if we're all still on this ride, right? And I think we all right now probably accept this team is not built to win reliably. I think they are going to be until Joel is back. So the next couple, and then we see what happens from there. They will be an underdog essentially every night, right? It almost doesn't matter who they're playing because they just have no claim on not a right to win, but an expectation to win. So I just want to see them play somewhat cohesive, right? We're starting to get games under their belts together with Paul George. So you should be able to fall into some stuff between Paul and Caleb, Paul and Andre, Paul and Yabu, whoever it might be in some of these actions. So I want to see some cohesion on offense. Frankly, I just want to see them make shots. Like it really is like, it's so hard to do something like keys to the game for this team when very basic stuff would be the difference between respectability and what's happening, right? We could just sit here and say, rebound the basketball, make threes, and you have a better chance. And that's the end of the pregame show, right? But like, it's really that simple. Their only path to winning right now is probably shooting well above their heads, certainly well above where they've been to start the season. Because they don't have.
They're 24th in defensive rebounding and 26th in threes.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, it's so getting into the individual matchup tonight is worthwhile to some degree. But at the end of the day, it's like if Kelly Oubre, Caleb Martin, Paul George don't make shots, you have no chance to win. There just is no way to win because they don't have guys who can break people down off the dribble. They don't have a reliable rim protector for multiple reasons between Drummond and Yabusele. You got to shoot the three ball well. That is every game that they're without Joel and Tyrese. That is the book. Either you shoot a lot of threes and make a lot of threes, or you lose. That's kind of how I look at this team right now.
Yeah, and I guess going into a tiny bit on the matchup specific stuff, because I agree with Kyle, when you don't rebound, when you don't take care of the ball, which I haven't been doing the last couple of days, and I expect could get worse with Tyrese Maxey out. And when you don't shoot, you're kind of in a bad spot. But also, the Lakers get to the line a ton. Tops in the league getting the free throw line. A big part of that is Anthony Davis, who's shooting like 12 per game.
And it's a league conspiracy.
Sure. We'll go with that too. But Anthony Davis specifically has a really bad matchup for Drummond. I'm really, really worried about LeBron just picking Drummond's missteps apart in the pick and roll and AD having a field day. And I don't know how you really rectify that because Drummond's not going to get any quicker, either in mobility or in decision-making. This is going to be a tough one.
It is. And then my question is, as we talk about keys, is with no Maxey, Paul George handling a lot of things, we'll get to the starting lineup, but of course, Kyle Lowry will be in there. What's it look like when he goes to the bench? Jared McCain, we heard reports that Reggie Jackson may now be in the mix as well. What does it look like? Because the ball handling, as we already talked about, is not great as it is. So now you're going deeper into your bench. Eric Gordon, we can include him in there as well, since we know he plays minutes. So Gordon, McCain, maybe even Reggie Jackson getting some time out there on the floor. What does that look like with those guys handling the basketball? That's what scares me a little bit, again, with those live ball turnovers, especially on the perimeter where it allows the Lakers to leak out for some easy buckets. Those backup guards have to protect the basketball and do so where they don't give those guys a chance to get out for some easy transition opportunities because of the lack of ball handling that is now on the team without Maxey.
I do think Reggie Jackson will protect the basketball. The problem is he's protecting it by not moving the ball whatsoever has kind of been the book on him early. I think he has been much more of a black hole than maybe I expected coming into, like, after they signed him. One, I didn't think he would play a ton, but two, whenever he's taken the floor, it's just been clear out, maybe get one screen, and then he just dribbles the clock down for, 18 seconds or whatever it is. So I'm not worried about him turning it over. I am worried about him just jacking pull-up jumpers and nobody else touching the ball and the offense dying on the vine. So I would keep an eye on that and see, does he play a little bit differently, knowing he's going to get, I guess, reliable minutes at least the next couple of nights. And with McCain, certainly I'm with you because rookies do not take great care of the ball as a general rule. His handle is an issue, and he hasn't really made an impact with his shooting yet. So I would keep an eye on him for sure.
Quick blind test. How many 2-pointers do you think Kyle Lowry has made in 7 games?
3.
It is exactly 3. He has 15
All right, I blind guessed. All right.
15 threes made and 3 2-pointers made. Legitimately one every other game he makes a 2-point shot.
Okay.
Really struggles to get to his spots. But at least we get to ramp him up. Hey, if he's going to play 30 minutes, I'm setting the over under at 1.5 twos made.
30 minutes of Kyle Lowry, man. What are we doing here? That is absolutely no disrespect to Kyle, but
he's had a great career. He's just 145.
And he in like a 10 to 15 minute per game role, I still think he can be a positive impact guy. Playing him 30 minutes is just like, how is this where we're all at right now?
Because the other options are Reggie Jackson and a rookie Jared McCain. Which, by the way, I'd ramp up McCain more than that before I would send Kyle out there for 30 minutes. But
definitely getting 25. We'll see how high Nick Nurse goes. They're down right now. We know sometimes when coaches get down, they go to people that they trust. He trusts Kyle Lowry. He's probably going to trust him, like you said, for 30 minutes. Let's get to the starting lineup tonight with Kyle Lowry in the starting lineup. Kyle Lowry replacing Tyrese Maxey in the backcourt with Kelly Oubre, Caleb Martin, Paul George, and Andre Drummond against this Lakers team. As Kyle pointed out earlier, a change in their starting lineup. Austin Reeves, as usual. Cam Reddish gets to start for D'Angelo Russell with Rui Hachimura, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis. Those are your 2 starting 5s for the Sixers and the Lakers. We'll see what Kyle Lowry does tonight. Now, let's get to our best bets for the night. The guys are going away from me on the picks, but that being said, I still have to tell you this pregame pick segment is brought to you by Bet365. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. All right, let's get to it.
To be clear, if we fade anything, we're fading Devon's picks, not Bet365. I want to make that abundantly clear.
Right.
Yes. I'm keeping tabs on you too for this. Same game parlay plus
we're keeping tabs on you, brother.
You should be, because when they start rolling, I don't want to hear anything. Paul George, 20 plus points in this game because 15 and 18 in the first 2. And then tonight he's going to get off a lot more shots. Yes, he'll have Cam Reddish, LeBron James, and others defending him, maybe even Rui Hachimura. But he's going to get us some shots. And if I expect anybody to lead this team, anybody to get over 20, it's most likely Paul George. So 20 points for him, 15 plus for LeBron James. And that is a same game parlay of plus 105. Individually, we've got Derek, you mentioned him, Kyle Lowry, a lot of 3-pointers. He's going to get some shots off tonight. 2 plus 3s made. They added that minus 140 for him because that's what he makes. He makes 3s. Minus 140 for Kyle Lowry for 3-pointers, and Andre Drummond, 10 plus rebounds at minus 200 for the 76ers. So there you have it. How's that, fellas?
I need to go back and check last game's performance. I'm pretty sure it went, let's say, poorly. But...
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Norm Powell, we definitely got that one. I don't remember what the rest were, but Norm.
You had a Maxey assist prop.
That was definitely out. Yeah, that was.
And Nick Batum made 3s.
He made 1, and he missed about 3 others. Yeah, so you remember. Absolutely. That pregame pick segment is brought to you by Bet365. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Is this a night where after the show we're deciding to choose chill? We'll see how everything goes.
I'm choosing chill either way. We do have a super chat, by the way, that snuck in here. I want to make sure we get
Wait, we're waiting until after the game?
Our guy Davon, a.k.a. Schoolboy Beats, said Lonnie Walker, Jordan Nwora, Chetty Osman. I think it's a hand in face palm emoji overseas. Listen, brother, I feel the energy and I feel the pain. It's tough looking at guys who could play in the NBA being elsewhere, and the Sixers saying, you know what, we just won't use that roster spot because of tax reasons. Not very compelling.
Not great. Not great at all. All right. Well, this pregame show is presented by Coors Light. See if you all choose chill. Visit CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball to get Coors Light delivered or find a store near you. It's almost game time. The 4-4 Lakers hosting the 1-6 76ers. We'll see how it all plays out. We'll reconvene afterwards on this Friday night, and we'll chat it up. For Derek, Kyle, Bree, I'm Devon. We thank you all for hanging out with us. We'll talk to you after the game for PHLY Sixers postgame. See you then.
We all silly like the mayor.